Здравствуйте, меня зовут Laura, это мой канал на YouTube Языки с Laurой. Hello everyone, my name is Laura and this is my channel Languages with Laura, and today we are going to do language app reviews. So initially I filmed this video as a vlog style, so I was doing each app for as long a time as the free trial would allow me, but unfortunately I lost a lot of those clips, so we are going to start again, and this is going to be a sit-down video of what I think of all these different language learning apps from my experiences doing the free trial. The apps I'm going to talk about are Transparent Languages. I wanted to try and do Babbel, but in order to do the free trial, you did have to put in your credit card so that they could charge you as soon as the free trial was done. And I was not going to do that, so unfortunately I really wanted to do Babbel. Maybe I'll do it in another video if I choose to do more of these, but I did also end up doing Jumpspeak, Busuu, Memrise, and Pimsleur, as these are all apps that I get a lot of ads for. I mean, it makes sense with my algorithm, but if you're another language learner, these apps have been what have been pushed for me for advertisements and things like that, so I thought I would do their free trials and let you know what I thought of them. First up, let's talk about Transparent Languages. Transparent Languages is not actually one that I decided to do because there had been advertisements or I'd heard about it, but actually because the place where I work partners with them. So this is an unsponsored, honest review, and I'm not mentioning where I work, but I was allowed to have a full year access of Transparent Languages because I am an employee with someone who partners with them. So I did Transparent Languages. I did it with Russian, and I don't know what it was, what I did, but when I started on there, the first thing they had me learn were like the emergency survival words, like something's on fire, I am not well, I am injured, call the police, like those kinds of words where if you're somewhere in a country and you need help for your physical safety, those were the words they had me learn. They didn't have me learn the alphabet, they didn't have me learn conversation or ordering in a restaurant or anything like that. No. It was all pure survival, which is interesting because when I was in high school, everybody in like my French and Spanish class were like, if we get stuck somewhere, I'm not going to be able to call for help. Well, Transparent Languages will teach you that right off the bat. So if you do get stuck somewhere, at least you'll be able to call for help. But you're not going to be able to order in a restaurant or get groceries or anything like that. So it was very interesting. I've never had an app come at it like that, and honestly, it really turned me off because a lot of those words, especially because it's Russian, are long words, and there are words within them. So like one word had actually multiple sections to it, but they didn't teach me that. They didn't make it easier. They just flashcard, memorize it, look at the picture, what's the word, what's the sentence, type it out. And I was like, this is an incredibly long word, I'm not gonna remember it, and it was actually more disheartening. However, I don't know if that was because I clicked something in the introduction. I don't think I did, because I want to learn Russian to communicate with people, not because I want to go to Russia, although I am planning on going to Central Asia again, but like, I don't know what made it that way, if it was just my experience or not, but it is very much like a flashcard. I did it on my computer. I think there was a speaking aspect to it though, but I don't know. I won't be doing it again personally. So let's move on to Pimsleur. For Pimsleur's free trial, they only allowed me to do one lesson. I couldn't even move on to lesson 2 because I would then have to pay $20 a month to get access to all the rest of their lessons, which one lesson is really hard to know if I really want to continue, like if it works or not, especially if you're somebody new who doesn't have a lot of experience. So this is what the one lesson that I got for free was like, and I did this also in Russian. It starts off with a 30-minute, roughly, podcast version. So you have 30 minutes, and you can pause it, and you can go back, and things like that, and you can also close out the app and still keep listening to it, or turn your phone off, so you can do other things like household chores, or drive somewhere, or something else while listening to the podcast aspect of this But the podcast aspect was really nice because it has one person like in English explaining everything, and then it had two speakers, one male, one female, to hear how they say things. And there was a lot of space for repetition. They broke things down into very small bites and then had you put them together to make the longer word or phrase. So it's very speaker and listener friendly. After you finish that 30-minute podcast, they do have a speaking practice, which I did, and it always said that I was perfectly correct. And I don't know if it's because I've actually studied Russian for a couple years, or like sometimes I felt like it was telling me I was correct even before I finished saying the word. So I don't know. And speaking with AI is always tricky. Like, it gets better, but with apps like these, it's not always like the best listening from them. So I'm always wary about if I'm saying something right or not, purely based off of what that app is telling me. There was also a reading section, and that just had a list of all the words, and it was the words in the Cyrillic alphabet, and then you could click on them and it would be read for you so that you could read it back. And even that's where I found there to be some grammatical instruction. Like, there was grammatical instruction in the podcast element of it, but then when I was doing the reading and it was telling me, that's when it taught me about stress in Russian. Like, some vowels and some letters change depending on if the stress is on them or not, which I thought was very interesting that it would be in that reading lesson. So you want to do all of these supplementary lessons even after the podcast, because you don't know what you're missing until you do all of them. And then of course they have flashcards from English to Russian and Russian to English, and they have a quick match, which, you know, it's matching the words as fast as you can, and speak easy and speed rounds. So those are more of the game type, trying to get you to do it faster and faster, whereas the podcast was nice and slow, understand and practice everything. So what I would say are the pros for this app is obviously that they have grammar explanations. So many apps don't have grammar explanations or don't have good ones. I loved that this app had an audio version of the grammar explanation, so I can have somebody telling it to me and giving me examples. However, I did not see a written form of these grammar explanations. So if I wanted to go back and hear that grammar explanation again, I would either have to review notes that I took or I'd have to re-listen. So that was one bummer. I wish that they had a place that you could see or read the grammar explanations. Like I said, there's a lot of space for repetition, slowing things down and then making it faster so that you can feel more comfortable when you're speaking it. And they like quiz you kind of at the end of like, how do you say this? And it's all based off of a very basic conversation, so you know in what context you're using these words and phrases. So the cons for this app for me personally is that there is no sort of writing practice. There's no way that I can be my own self in the conversation. I just do whatever they tell me to do, and I can't produce it on my own, which is a huge part for me of learning a language. However, that can easily be supplemented by your own exercises outside of the app. Now that if you've done a couple of lessons, you can write out your own conversation, but that's not something that you do within the app. So it's not like you can just learn the language, or at least if you learn how I learned, because everybody learns differently. If you learn how I learned, then you do have to do your own practice outside of the app to actually learn the language. It also felt very formal. I wonder and I fear that there is no space for slang or kind of like how locals speak. So you would just learn how to say everything very formally. And I'm not talking about "вы" versus "ты." Yes, they did not introduce "ты" in the first lesson, the informal "you." They only did "вы," the formal "you" in Russian. But I'm saying, like, if you're talking to somebody on the street and they use a slang word or phrase, something colloquial, you're not going to be taught it and you're not going to be able to use it yourself. So, but again, that can of course be supplemented by watching TV shows or listening to music, things like that. The other, of course, was that I only got one free lesson. All of this opinion is based on one lesson. So I don't know what long-term effects on this can be. I did this once. I will say though, it was nice that there's the 30-minute podcast and then all these supplementary lessons, so you can either do it all in one day and that is your lesson, or you can stretch it throughout like a week or so, and that way you get that spatial repetition. That is something that I would probably prefer, is to listen to the podcast on like Sunday or Monday, and then through the week do the other supplementary materials. It would be slower, but it would ensure that I'm learning it thoroughly. So I do really admire that aspect of it. So all in all, would I actually use this language learning app? Probably. Honestly, I feel like I don't need to supplement too much in order to truly learn the language with this app. I would want to listen to music and TV shows for more common or colloquial slang, and I would want to do my own writing and speaking exercises outside of it, but based off of, again, this one lesson, it did a great job of explaining grammar and having practice and just having multiple activities to do. And there seemed to be quite a bit of Russian available on this app, which was exciting because that's part of the why I chose Russian. For most of these language learning apps, I either chose Russian or Arabic unless they were unavailable, because those are going to be the languages taught through English with less resources as opposed to like Spanish or French. Because that's just how most language learning applications and stuff are, is that, you know, you might have 30 lessons of Russian and then like 300 lessons of Spanish. So, would I use Pimsleur? Probably. Is it worth $20 a month? That's the real question. If it's worth $20 a month, and then, I mean, you can pay like, what was it, $170 a year, or like you can do it monthly, you can do it yearly, but I would want to be sure that I have a good study routine set up with this app if I'm going to pay for it. Now let's talk about Jumpspeak, because Jumpspeak ads annoy me a lot. Like, they're so aggressive in bashing language learning unless it's through Jumpspeak, the method that they talk about, and they're like, you'll learn the language only through speaking, which is like, well, some of us want to learn how to read and write it too, but for speaking, let's give them a try. So I looked at what Jumpspeak was like. However, Jumpspeak did not have a large language selection, so I had to do German with Jumpspeak. I couldn't do Arabic or Russian, so I did German. The cost is typically $7 a month, and I was only allowed to do one free lesson before I had to unlock the rest of the lessons by paying $7 a month, which is significantly cheaper than Pimsleur, but we'll see what the lessons were like. I did not like the structure of these lessons. Still better than some apps by far, but what you had was a listening section, which was all sounds, no translations. And I'm not saying like letters or alphabets because it was somewhat in the beginner. I'm saying it was a word or a phrase, and then I had to tap on it, and I had no idea what the translation was or what was going on or anything like that. It was just getting myself familiar with it. But then the writing was kind of the same way. The writing would have you listen to something, and then you had to tap the translation, which, again, if you're coming at German with no background at all, how are you going to know what the translation is? There's no spot that it's teaching you. If there is an English translation, it's very small, and it's not where you can see it. So it's actually pretty difficult to know what's going on. And then you have a speaking, which, again, when talking about Pimsleur, I talked about how I have a hard time with speaking in apps just because it's all based off of like AI and technology as opposed to somebody actually telling you if you're saying something correctly. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then there was a conversation feature, which you are doing the exact same conversation 3 times. There's no switch up, there's no differences. You are doing 1, 2, 3, and hopefully by the end you figure out what they're trying to teach you, and that's how you learn it. So the pros for Jumpspeak, for me, and this is all my opinion, again, none of this is sponsored, the pros are the fact that the lessons have multiple elements to it and that it's structured with listening, writing, speaking, and conversation. If that's not bad, that's not bad. The cons, however, I didn't like that it was the same conversation over and over again because it only showed me how to use these words in this one context as opposed to other things. There's no repetition in it. I mean, again, I can choose to do listening one day, writing one day, speaking one day, but once I complete that lesson, it's not going to come up again. Versus in Pimsleur, it said that we will see these things again later on. So there's no repetition. So I do it for a day and then I don't practice it again with the app. And unless I make the conscious decision to review, it's not going to be reviewed and I'm going to forget it. It follows a more immersion rather than teaching strategy, which works great for some people, especially like children and things like that. You know, they always say to put the kids through immersion, they'll figure it out and blah, blah, blah. But some of us actually want to have a translation because we want to know why things are or why things mean the way that they do, what their literal translation is versus what the meaning translation is. And I am one of those people. I like to know what it literally translates to so I can understand the mentality of the language and the people, which will help me learn later on. And I could do a whole video about how learning the mentality of different languages and how that like plays into itself. But anyway, it did not teach me anything. And it tried to immerse me, but again, it's all AI. So it wasn't even like that good of immersion in my opinion. There was no grammar explanation. No grammar explanation at all, which is really hard on me because I need to be told this is how things are. I can't just pick it up as easily as some other people can. Again, too structured. It was the exact same conversation 4 times. And it wasn't fun. By the end of it, I was bored, I was annoyed, and I just wanted to kind of be done with it, even though I didn't feel like I had learned the material. So overall, it's okay. If you can learn through more of an immersive learning style, but through AI, and you really only want to speak and listen, then yeah, Jumpspeak is fine, but I wouldn't really actually recommend it to anyone who's trying to learn a language. Even if you're just trying to listen and speak, if you're trying to actually learn the language, I don't think I'd go with Jumpspeak. The next app that I tested out was Memrise. So I did Arabic on Memrise. I was able to do the free version. So Memrise has a free version, but then you can pay for a pro version, and the pro version is $60 a month. And that mostly just gets rid of ads and gives you extra exercises along with what you're already getting. So I would kind of hold it akin to Duolingo of like you have your basic lessons and you can do all that for free. But if you pay for the pro or the premium version, you get no ads and extra stuff. So, and Memrise is much more similar to how Duolingo is set up. But for Memrise, I did Arabic. However, there were only 31 lessons for the Arabic language in total. That's it. Or once I do 31 lessons, I'm done. So if I do a lesson a day or a lesson every other day, I'd be done in a month or 2. Which, especially if you're going to pay the pro of $60 a month, paying $120 for 2 months and then being done, that does not seem worth it to me financially and linguistically. Like, I don't think you learn enough of the language, especially for that price. Memrise is structured very much like Duolingo is, where it's a lesson, you do a lesson, you're done. You do a lesson, you're done. There are no multiple supplementary materials. Again, some of that might come in with Pro, but I wasn't going to do that. So you do the one lesson, that's when you see the material, you're done with it, and you move on to the next lesson. And it's very much just flashcards and multiple choice. They say, what's this word? You choose it. Hear this. What is it saying? You choose it. So it's all really just multiple choice, which, like, I would just make my own flashcards at that point, because to me it's more valuable to make your own flashcards because you get the practice of actually writing the flashcards and then you get to use them versus, and then I would use them over and over again, versus this is like a one-time lesson. You do it like 15 questions or whatever, all multiple choice, and then you're done. Pros, they have videos, they have visuals of the person saying the phrases. So if you want to like watch how their mouth moves or how their embouchure is set, that's great. And that's really the only pro I have. All the rest are cons. Like, it's too easy to just go through it and not actually pay attention or focus on what you're doing, which makes it a lot harder to learn. If I know that I can just select and move on, I don't feel like I'm learning and then I'm not actually learning. So I really did not like that aspect about it. There's no usage. There's no conversation. There's no context. It's the one word or the one short phrase. Also with Arabic, I started at the beginner level to see how they would handle something with a non-Latin or non-Roman script. They didn't teach the alphabet at all. They didn't teach anything with the letters, how they have an initial position, a middle position, a final position, and an independent position. Nothing like that. So I would need a lot of other materials to help me learn the language if I wanted to do it on Memrise. I would need so many other supplementary materials. They also did not explain grammar. They didn't explain grammar at all whatsoever. And like I said, I was able to do multiple lessons. So I was not very pleased. Honestly, I think Duolingo is better than this. Honestly, that is my opinion. If you're curious on what my thoughts are on Duolingo, I do have that video already up on my channel. You can go ahead and watch it there. It's a whole video on my opinion and experiences with Duolingo. But Memrise is basically Duolingo, but slightly worse in my opinion. If you love some of these language learning apps that I am not loving, good for you. I'm happy for you. Again, this is all personal opinion. If it works for you, I'm really happy. But if you're looking for a language learning app, based on my expertise of learning 6 languages and some of them being on my own, this is what I think. The last app that I did was Busuu. And Busuu, they have a free version, much like Duolingo and Memrise, but they also have the pro version that you can pay for, and that is only around $10 a month. It's like $10.50 for US dollar a month for the pro version. So with this app, I also did Arabic again. They only have lessons up to a B2 level. So, but they have many lessons within that because they have it sorted as like A1, and then there were like 6 chapters within A1, and within those chapters you had like 5 or so lessons. And then A2, again, certain number of chapters, and then smaller lessons within them. So even though it's only up to a B2 level, which is actually quite common for languages like Russian and Arabic and apps that are coming from an English speaker point of view, it's actually a thorough B2. It's not 5 lessons, oh, you're A1, congratulations. It's like, no, you're doing 6 chapters, 5 lessons per chapter. You are learning what you need to learn to be considered at an A1 or an A2 level, all the way up to B2. Busuu is another flashcard kind of fill-in-the-blank style lesson. So it's all written and visual of tapping the translation or hearing and tapping the translation. Nothing's actually coming from you. You're not producing the language through speaking or writing. The pros of this app is the grammar explanations, I would say. Before and even during some of the lessons, they would stop and give you a grammar explanation for like, ma ismuka is how you ask your name for a male versus ma ismuki is how you ask your name for a female, because the ka and the ki are the change in gender depending on who you're talking to. Not who is talking, who you're talking to. So I really admire that they actually had a grammar explanation, and then they specifically focused on using what you just learned in that explanation in the lesson going forward. They also, like I said, because they do it in chapters, there are checkpoint reviews. So you do like those 5 lessons, and then you do like a quiz or a test or a review of everything that you just learned. So if you do 1 lesson a day, and then at the end of the week, you do a cumulative what's everything you learned. So there is a little bit of special repetition there, which I'm always a big fan of course. And then this next element is both a pro and a con. The lessons are very short. It's a pro because if you don't have a lot of time, a little bit is better than nothing at all. But it's also kind of a con for me because if I want to learn a language and I'm only going to use an app, I'm only going to use Busuu, I study for 3 minutes a day, and that is it. That just is not a lot to me. I feel like I could be learning the language faster, even if it was a 5-minute or a 10-minute lesson. You know, I just feel like you could do more, but the only way you can do more is to do more lessons, but then you have less spatial repetition. So that's what I think. And then also everything for Arabic was in the, okay, not everything, but most of it was in the Roman alphabet. Anytime that had to come through me, it was all in the Roman alphabet. It wasn't actually in the Arabic script. So I wasn't the biggest fan of how much they used that, but at the same time, they did not teach me the alphabet. So there's a little bit of a disconnect of the alphabet is here, but I don't need to know it because there's the Roman Latin version, but I want to learn the alphabet, but they're not teaching me the alphabet. So overall, with Busuu, I think you can just do the free version. I don't really know what the pro version gets you other than, again, no ads. And I don't think it's something to be done alone. I think a lot like Duolingo and Memrise, it's a good thing to have in the tool belt, but I don't think it's going to teach you the language on its own. So yeah, those are my opinions of the language learning apps that I reviewed. I know there are more apps that I would love to review, and both apps that would allow you to do multiple languages like these. I have more that I'm interested in doing, or language apps for specific languages. I know that there are quite a few apps to learn how to speak Mandarin Chinese from English speakers, and there are apps that are just devoted to that one language as opposed to choose whatever multiple language or even do multiple languages at once. So if you like this kind of video and content, give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below if there are certain apps you would like me to try and review. Maybe next time I can do it more of a vlog style and the clips will actually survive instead of just this one sit down after a week of doing it, but let me know what you prefer. Also, if you like language learning content like this, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified as I am posting videos hopefully every week. I am trying to do so every week, but you know, sometimes life just gets in the way. But I will do my best, and I'm hoping that this second half of the semester is not as busy, so hopefully I will be able to actually post a video every week, and I would love to post them on Mondays because that's what my intro says, and I know recently I've been posting them on Wednesdays, but again, hopefully the second half of the semester is not near as busy. So yes, if you like it, thumbs up, comment down below, subscribe, all that jazz. I also have other social media linked in the description below, like a BlueSky and Instagram, and you can see my travels as well as my studies on there as well. Thank you all. Shukran. That's not the language I did the intro in. Spasiba. Thank you so much for watching, and until I see you in the next video, пока!